Welcome to the Van Ryn Compliance Podcast with Rob and Dawn. We help growing teams reduce risks, build trust, and stay audit ready without the overwhelm.
Welcome to February, Dawn. We're already here. Can you believe it?
We are. Yes, happy Valentine's Day.
In
12
you're
days.
Going right to it. Happy Valentine's Day. Well, are you going to be my Valentine this year?
Yes,
what are you getting me?
chocolate and flowers and smelly stuff. Yeah.
We like smelly stuff. We like stuff like that. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we also like, besides flowers and smelly stuff and chocolates, we also like new products. So this month here at Van Ryn, I know it, we're offering 2 new products. One of them is a tabletop exercise, which we're going to unpack and dive in deeper today. And the other one is our AI and automation governance, which we're going to talk about over the coming weeks with some guest speakers and an interview with Benny, our lead auditor here at Van Ryn. So very exciting two offerings for our clients to actually show that they are ready, they are proven, they are resilient in their compliance and security. And how are we governing AI? Because we know the bots are out there. There's a lot of bots right now, right?
Yes.
So we've got the Claude bots, we got the Molt bots, we got all kind of bots. So it's like with all the different bots, it's like, what do we, how do we guide those? Well, we're going to dive into those a little bit later in the governance podcast. But for this week's pod, besides Valentine's Day, Dawn, it's tabletop exercises. So let's walk through what is a tabletop exercise and why do our listeners care about that?
Well, they should care about it because it is a requirement pretty much with every compliance program you do, HIPAA included. So an auditor is going to ask you, have you done one? And someone's going to say, well, I don't know. What is it? Do I just sit down and answer some questions, or what do we do here? It varies depending on the organization. Some large organizations are they do some very detailed where it's multiple days, which I think, Rob, you have done those way back when in the corporate world. But they can be just very simple as well. And it kind of depends on what the scope is. And, maybe you're being asked to do a certain exercise from a customer or a compliance program. But really, a tabletop is there's lots of pieces, involved in it. And it also depends on the maturity level of your organization as well. So we can go ahead and go in and break down some of these offerings if you want. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should walk through, because what we do is we focus on the level of your maturity, right? So yes, we're talking like if you're 5 years old or 25 years old or 25 to 50 years old or 50 to 80 years old. And we rank the maturity level of the clients we work with in their organizations so that we can best fit and right size the solution to their business. And so we first start out with maturity level 0 to 2. These are the foundational exercises. So we're really focusing on just awareness and orientation and policy and plan walkthroughs. Those are the first things that we look at. Awareness and orientation in the foundational exercise of a tabletop is really looking at roles and reporting paths and workforce awareness and training, kind of the basics, like what do we do when something happens? How do we dive in when there is a disaster or there's a problem or we're having issues with that? And then the other issue is policy and plan validation. This is a big one with incident response plans, disaster recovery plans, BCP plans. These are kind of like low to medium, lifts, low efforts. Usually take 1 to 3 weeks, and then may anywhere from 4 to like 10 hours of time. Really kind of a low level, kind of just basic understanding within in the business and the environment to understand kind of what your maturity level is and understand the risks of your policies and your awareness of your orientation and organization. And then we move into that maturity level 2 or 3, Dawn. You can kind of walk us through is that operational and leadership exercise. This is kind of a fun one.
Yeah. These ones, these may involve some, I can't even think about what it is. In interviews, sorry. Interviews of like your leadership team, your security team, that type of thing. So this is more like operational, tactical. So we're going to test under pressure, detect, contain, recovery, things like that. So these are going to be, this could be even where you shut something down. Maybe you shut a server down, and a lot of folks have like a test environment. Well, they shut it down and see if it comes back up. And that can be pretty intense there. And then alongside that, there's a executive crisis management. So this is where you can test your leadership decision making. What we have on the SOP, is that really what is happening? Or is that really what, how we can resolve this? So it also helps you to validate, like, we have these steps down. This is what we're supposed to do. These are the decisions we need to make because of this. Are these right? And it could change. This could change year to year. And so that's why it's really important to do these annually. But this is like this is more intense. This is not just like we've got something on paper, let's pretend this is happening. This is like, you're probably taking down like some sort of a, hardware or software or something, and seeing if it comes back up and what you're going to do and what was the outcome of this. And this is a little more heavier lift, a little bit more time, involved in this one, a little bit more hours as well. So, yep.
Yeah, this could go up to a month of testing. And really it's getting your leadership team, like your war room, get in a war room, and you go through the team from the executive level and decide how the steps. You're going to go through the steps. Is legal? Where do you need to get engaged? Or do you have to write a letter to the FCC, the OCR? Do you have to write it to additional customers, large entities? What do the communications look like? The regulatory pieces and the risk decisions, and then the tactical piece, like what do we do? How do we detect it? How do we contain it? Or how do we recover those actions? Those RTOs, RPOs, which we'll talk a bit here next up. But that's kind of that maturity 2 to 3. Like you've done like a HIPAA audit. You're probably there. You've done some good stuff, but you're like, okay, now I don't know if our executive team knows what to do, who to call instead of the one person, or what are the steps to go through. Then we move into that maturity from that 2 to 3 to like 2 to 4, and then 3 to 4. This is where a majority of clients usually have issues, is this disaster recovery and business continuity tabletops, where they lack it. So HIPAA, the NIST frameworks, HIPAA, SOC 2, ISO, and HITRUST, they all require that disaster recovery piece. Like, what is it? How are you going to recover the environment? How are you going to get back to where you are today? What does that really look like? So this is where we validate the recovery capabilities. So if you're in AWS, you're in Azure, you're on-prem, you're in GCP, wherever you are, how are you going to roll your environment back? How are you going to get your systems back on? And review those RTO and RPOs, review that failover, review the manual operations. And this is like 3 to 5 weeks. So we're actually going through step by step, looking at the systems, looking at the documentation, looking at the communications, and really pulling that apart and really diving into really seeing where are we within our DR plans, and are we really be able to get the environment back up and running. Yep. And that's usually about 12 to 18 hours-ish is usually what we see. And then we move into that from a DR piece into that compliance and driven exercises. So regulatory compliance is driven. This starts getting into kind of companies that have, maybe they have boards to report to, maybe they have a large, maybe if they're a public company, maybe they have VC money, maybe they have large investors, or maybe they have multiple members that we really have to demonstrate the audit defensibility. This is where the legal pieces come in. Can your organization withstand a lawsuit or an incident or a breach, and be ready to demonstrate that their audit is defensible, the documentation is defensible? And this is sitting down again in a war room and going through that. What are some of the things, Dawn, do we validate within our that regulatory compliance piece?
This would be evidence. evidence and documentation and workflows. And basically, how are you? Well, first of all, you're gonna have remediation items. How are you going to fix those? What are the gaps and what are the solutions to fill the gaps, to make sure this doesn't happen again? To make sure not it's going to happen, but to make sure that next year when you do the testing, that you've identified that this was a gap, and so we now have a SOP for how we're going to handle that that remediation there. So. Understanding that, and in documenting all this along the way too. It's like it's great to do the test, but also the documentation, so you can see where your gaps are and what needs to be updated in your SOPs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then understand the workflows. Like a lot of people say, what tools do we use to get this result, or what do we have to do? Yep. What are the steps we have to take, or do we have the right tools? Do we have the right environment? A lot of people don't know, or people don't have, or organizations don't have SOPs, so they can really understand what they need to do and how they need to do it. Yep. So then you go from that maturity 3, 4 into the next maturity level of 3 to 5. So these are some, and I think you should go through each step. You should go through each level to really get a good understanding of the environment. Mm-hmm. But this is where we do the cross-functional, the enterprise level. So this is probably companies that are maybe 20 or 30 seat, maybe 40 seat or more, where we're doing breakdown organizational silos. Like, so we have like, here's HR, and here's marketing, here's IT, here's development, here's legal. Maybe you have onshore, offshore resources. Maybe you have divisions in different parts of the world, or in countries. And what does that look like? And how do you coordinate all of that? So this is a lot of effort. Sometimes these efforts will be in person. 4 to 6 weeks, you could be up to 20, 30 hours of effort. So these are big lifts, but what we find is this really aligns the organizations in their coordination to make sure they understand how to coordinate between IT and HR and legal and all of that, and really be focused on everything we need to be focused on. And then the last one here, Dawn, you want to take us through the threat intel? These are fun. It's like SWAT team stuff.
Yes, it is. This is, it's really to maximize, what's going on and the learning, and to align to the real world attacks, the real world, cyber system outages, things that are really happening nowadays. So it's really that alignment, and making sure that everyone's role in this company, and because this is very organizational, departmentalized, kind of a bigger organization, with these multiple departments. So making sure everyone knows what they need to do, and just aligning it with what's going on. So this one is, like Rob said, is definitely a high effort. This is going to take a month or two. Up to about 30 hours. This is going to be kind of a higher end. You're very mature. You've got a larger scope, that type of thing, and the multiple departments and that type of thing. In this, so yeah, this is definitely a larger scale type of tabletop.
Yep. Real world attack paths. So this was like you're looking at your vectors, maybe attack path, maybe is bots, but maybe it's power. Maybe it's utilities. Maybe it's phones. Maybe it's who knows, databases. Maybe there's an attack vector that you've never thought of. This is where we go through that threat intel. Red team, blue team, sit down and really go through those steps and all those vectors to understand and make sure that you're protecting the business, you're protecting the data, and you're able to come back from that and recover. So, and in all of these tabletops that we're rolling out here in February, what we like to do is we don't want to just do the audit, right? Not only just walk you through that tabletop and go through all the steps over the multiple weeks, but we're going to lead and facilitate everything. And then we're going to give you a AAR is what we call it, as an after action report. So we'll give you a report on everything we find in our recommendations. So, say like in your DR plan, we sit down and we basically facilitate a disaster. We facilitate the recovery, and then we're going to give you the findings and recommendations of what we found, so that you know what to go and dive into and how to resolve those issues. It's big. I think the cross-functional participation is huge, because a lot of us, we don't have time. We don't take the time to sit down and go through things. So if you can break things apart and get your team aligned and get your team together and be able to work on stuff like this, then you're ready. It's almost like best to do it offsite. From those parts, you go into those realistic scenarios. We're really good at creating scenarios that custom tailor and custom fit your needs, so that so you can really align it to your business. So, say if you're an ice cream company, well, the bad thing about an ice cream company is if you can't keep it cold. So what does that look like? How do we keep that going?
Yeah.
Do we lose product and all of that? And then aligning the tabletops, what we like to do is aligning those to HIPAA, SOC, ISO, and high trust, right, Dawn? So what are some of the values that you can get out of the tabletops that lead into, say, SOC or ISO?
Well, you're going to be more prepared. You're going to show the auditors that you're prepared, your preparedness for if something happens. So, or when something happens. We shouldn't say if, because it's something's going to happen. So it just really shows the preparedness. And so we help you with that. And then you can be better aligned with the auditor is going to have more, he's going to feel like you've really gotten everything together, everything in place. And then also your leadership team, your security team, your whole team is going to feel confident if something happens. You've got a, you understand what to do. And then you're going to practice this every year. You're going to do this every year, and learn from it and make it better. So, Yep, definitely. And it would give you those real steps, right? These are clear next steps, risk reduction and resilience of what you need to do. And that's what we put together. And that's what we do with our new tabletop exercises. Tabletop's been around a while, but we put it together, and how Van Ryn does it and how we do it. And we're seeing a lot of value, and our clients are seeing the value and understanding their risk, understanding what they need to do, and go from there. And if you got an email from me that talks about this, and we are just excited to share these services, this and also the AI, which Rob will dig into. If you got an email from me, there's also a coupon. So we offer 15% off a tabletop. So respond to my email or just reach out to us, and we will schedule a time, kind of figure out what the scope is, what you're needing, what kind of tabletop you need, and we're happy to help you add that service, and so you can feel more confident and understand what you're up against if something happens, so you're prepared.
Yep. Yeah, it's not a one size fits all either. Everybody's unique. Every situation's unique. What may be important to one startup, maybe it's throughput, where the other one is like, I don't care about throughput, but I care about high availability, and what that looks like and how that changes. So when we put that together, so yes, look for that email from Dawn, and respond. We'll set up a time and discuss that. But for the folks that aren't clients right now, there's be more details down in the notes, so that you can understand how to actually do a tabletop, or just reach out to us on the podcast here, or hello@vanryncompliance.com. And once again, thank you everybody for listening to this week's pod. Like or subscribe. That gets us into more people's feeds and really helps them protect their companies and get their compliance dialed in. So, and yes, it is Valentine's Day month, right? Or week, or no, not yet. We're getting there. But don't forget your Valentine's, I guess, right?
There you go. Don't forget chocolates and flowers.
That's it. Chocolates and flowers. Alrighty. Until next week. Bye-bye.